Hey, welcome everybody to our webcast today. My name is Josh Benoit. I'm from the Eplan customer journey team, and we're going to be talking about automating panel design with automatic routing. This session is being recorded, by the way. I already had a question if it's going to be recorded and if it could be sent out. Yes. And if you have any of your colleagues that want to see this, the recording for this will be sent out tomorrow, a day, like 1 day later after our webcast. It is sent out. So if you attend or you don't attend, then you will still get the recording of the webcast the next day. So without any further ado, though, I have to bring on my guest today. Well, I say my guest. I'm actually his guest, I think, Paul Goleniak. Paul, I know that you've been here almost the longest out of anybody else at ePlan in the U.S. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, how long you've been here, and your favorite color.
Yeah, so I've actually been around since 2004 at Eplan. Before I started at Eplan, I was a designer doing design and build work for automotive industry. As I'm here in I guess in sunny Michigan. It's a little bit cold, but the sun's actually out, so it's not so bad. Um, but yeah, so I've been with the professional services team the entire time and seen a lot of different changes as we continue to grow, which has been pretty exciting. And yeah, looking forward to to the webcast today. I would say my favorite color is blue, Josh. So
Blue, same here.
and
Yeah, same
yeah,
here.
yeah.
And you say it's sunny over there. It's actually sunny here. I'm in Houston,
Oh, I'm sure it is.
and it's sunny over here too, but it's not as warm. You would think it would be warm in Houston right now, but it's below freezing, and that's really kind of strange for Houston at this time of the year, because we already had a freeze that came through a few weeks ago. So a little odd, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about automating that automatic routing with your panel design. I know this is a topic that's a pretty highly talked about one, and you and I were actually talking about a little bit of this before we started earlier this morning, and
Yeah.
in automatic panel routing, kind of what people think it means and what it is, it could be two different things, because you have so many people that think, well, if it's automatic, then do I need to do anything with this? But I kind of think about it as like my wife tells me how I need to do things. She doesn't know the efficiencies that I know. So some of those things may work for me, but some of them I might want to do a little bit differently. And I think that that's what we're talking about here, that it's not like
Yeah.
this is how you have to do it. This is the optimal way of doing it, but you have that expert on hand to really know if that's how it should be whenever you're doing this design work.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't want to we don't want to minimize obviously the work of the electricians and indicate that they're may or may not be doing something correctly. I visit a lot of companies, whether they are currently using ePlan or if they are looking for new tools to help with the efficiency. So I get a lot of feedback from all different different areas, whether it's the engineering team or if it is the electricians on the floor. So uh, the this particular topic is one that I find is much more than just saying, hey, do you want to route your wires automatically throughout the panel? And there's just so much more to this functionality that I'm excited to be able to talk about this today because there's there's some checks and balance, some checks and balances essentially in my project that I can help later on when I do provide my project from to the shop floor for building the panel, that these tedious errors and things like that that we hear about over and over, that that take time and cost um, a lot of time and money for that panel to be created. So yeah, I'm looking forward to having this conversation and kind of shedding some light on what more can come from just adding this functionality of routing the wires within the panel.
Fantastic. Well, I'll let you pull up your handiwork there.
Yeah, sounds. So I'll just share. I've just got a couple of slides that I just will kind of highlight a little bit of what we'll talk about. I'll go into the software and also show a couple of examples of some things that that can be can also be done within the routing environment as well. So let's
And
see here.
also, let me say this, that if you have any questions about this, please send your questions in. We're going to get to as many questions as possible as Paul gets further into this topic. So if you'd like to leave those, and also, again, let me just reiterate for those that didn't hear earlier, this is being recorded. And if you, for whenever you registered, one of the things that we do is that we send it to you tomorrow. You will get the recording of this. And if you have colleagues that also want to see the recording, then just have them register for the webcast. And even if they don't attend, they will get the recording of that. That doesn't mean that people shouldn't attend live, because live is the way to go.
Let me know if you see that screen okay.
Got it.
All right. So I just have a couple of slides, like I mentioned. I just want to talk about that routing and production part. And so when it comes to whether you are new to Eplan or you've been a user of Eplan products, the routing and production is a module or an element that comes with, sorry, is an element that comes with the or that's available with ProPanel. And so you have ProPanel Professional, whether it's the add-on to Electric P8 or if it's the standalone P8 or ProPanel Professional, you can add this element for routing and production. There's a couple of nice things, nice features that you get with that, and one of them is this project processing, which you can essentially, we do have some companies, Josh, that ask us all the time. They're like, well, you know what? I just want to build, I just want to create a panel. I have a list of parts and I just need to create the panel first. And then we'll deal with the schematics later on. And so this, project processing allows me to import in a list of parts, but more important, what's really nice about this is that I can also have all of the, I can also have all of the device tags already defined as well. So if I have a list of devices with part numbers, I can import that in an Excel format to to at least give me an opportunity to start laying out the parts of the panel, identify where my wire duct is going to be or different routing paths, and then start placing those different components. In addition to that, we do have some companies that'll say, well, you know what, I also have my wire connections, even though I don't have any schematics. I also have my some information about the to and from data for the wires. So the project processing allows me to build that panel, route the wires within that panel without having any schematics. So it's a pretty useful tool that's available from the routing and production element that you get. But from the wiring standpoint, what are we really getting from the wiring standpoint? Well, we can, there's each of the devices that are placed on the panel have within it a connection point pattern. And what's really unique and interesting about that is that from the data portal, if you're familiar with the data portal, is that the ePlan data portal, the manufacturers are providing this type of information already with the part. So we're asking those manufacturers to enhance the experience of the from that aspect of downloading those parts from the data portal and already having those connection point patterns available to you. And even if they're not there, they are very easy for our users to go ahead and define exactly what their connection point patterns are. Those connection point patterns will help us to define the position in which the route is going to, the wires are going to take. Is the wire going up and then over? Is it going to go down? And typically, you know, odd number connections and even number connections, they might have a specific orientation on the part. So we do make things much easier for the users to set those parameters very quickly as well. Um, you know, being able to create the wire part numbers or have part numbers in the part database for wires is something that I realized and recognized not too long ago, that this is something new to all of our users, that you know traditionally we don't define wire part numbers. And what I want to show you today is why I feel from my experience that this is an area that I can enhance, or let's say make things a little bit more efficient and quicker when it comes to defining the wire size and the wire color. And I'll explain that a little bit more when I go into the drawing into the panel project. But if you think about the fact that if I'm going in and you know, and I have a wire, I have all these wires throughout my project, and you know, and I'm defining the you know the color and the gauge. Well, there is one property that would really help me to understand the fill capacity of the wire duct, and that's the outside diameter. And so the wow, I'm just getting hammered with
Yeah, I was gonna say, why don't you put do not disturb on your teams real quick?
yeah,
Give you a pause to do that while
yeah.
I know
Sorry,
that.
even yeah, it does show that I'm available. So let me do that here real quick. All right, so
Yeah,
sorry about that.
no problem.
But yeah, there's some valuable information and properties that we can define inside those parts that are going to really help us, um, you know, help the users to take advantage of some functionality in the project. So the other item that's pretty important here is going to be defining those routing paths. And so we have you know, we have wires that go from the door back into the inside of the panel. So we've got to be able to illustrate how those wires get from the door with a little bit of slack and then into the back of the panel. So we have some ways to use you know, curves in order to show that little slack on the door. So we're not like when we open up our door, it's not just a tight connection. We get a you know, a realistic length of that wire. These routing paths can be either within wire duct in different types of wire duct. Different manufacturers are providing these types of wire duct parts already available to you from the Eplan data portal. And if you're not familiar with the Eplan data portal, that is our part database, our global part database that we provide all of our users around the world. There's over 2 million parts. Over 500 manufacturers are providing part data on a daily basis. So this is information that is constantly updated, and new parts from manufacturers, new manufacturers they're being added on a regular basis. So it's a great way for you to have consistent, high quality data. I already mentioned the connection point patterns coming from the manufacturers. They're doing a great job of providing the highest quality data to all of our users around the world, and we're really excited about that information that comes from the manufacturers. So, with that
I want
said,
to
I'll
look.
go ahead and you know,
I
I
want to look
think
real quick.
I'll
But
pause
by
from
the
here.
way,
Yeah,
I want to see. I want to see because we normally tell you, um, as far as the data portal goes, how many manufacturers we have and how many. I'm pulling it up right now. How many
yeah,
manufacturers and how many parts we have. So I'm going to pull up that link and leave it because I think that that's important part of this. That showing how much the data portal isn't not on. I wouldn't say improving, but how much it's adding and how many more manufacturers, how many more parts. Because just as of a few months ago, I mean, we were at a huge amount of manufacturers and parts I think that we were closing in on what, 2 million, or am I saying
Oh
that
no,
right?
so we're definitely over. So in the ePlan cloud, we can see that. I think it was the last I checked, it was about 2 point or just over 2 million parts, and we're over. We did have, yeah, on our website we used to show that, or have that available. I'd like to see that come back. It made it easy for us to see very quickly, also kind of what parts were added, what manufacturers added parts, and I think
Yeah.
that went away a couple of
Yeah, it
about a
looks like
month,
the
couple
last
months
the
ago.
last update that we had was October 24 for that.
Yeah,
So, and we were at 511 manufacturers and almost 2 million. So, I'll look that up and find out. Paul, the reason that we haven't had that update, and to let everybody know, is because we're in the process of updating our website, which will be
website. Yeah,
coming out in the next few months. So, we'll have some huge improvements on that side, and you'll be able to see those changes and go in and see the updates on the data portal. So that's why it's not currently showing that on the website.
yeah.
So
Okay.
from a customer standpoint, you actually are in the field quite a bit and talking to customers, Paul. So, what are some of the common things that you're seeing or questions that you're fielding?
Yeah, I get a chance to to pop in on users and get their feedback on how they're using the software, or are there things that that they might be struggling with, or maybe they have questions about, or maybe they want to be able to do something a little bit different. And so I get an opportunity to sit down and really understand and assess how they're using the software. And then from the other side of it, maybe it's a company that is looking to transition and go into look for new efficiencies. And so I get an opportunity to sit down not only with the engineering team but also the manufacturing team, and start asking some questions about what type of documentation, especially from the manufacturing side, what type of documentation are they able to get, or what would help them be more efficient. And a lot of times what I'm finding is that the from the shop floor, the electricians, they're building their panels from hard copy prints. They are still today. I remember before I started at ePlan, I worked for um, a panel shop, and so I remember going on the floor and just kind of seeing how things were being done. And I remember the electricians were highlighting their prints, highlighting wires from one device to the next. And it was interesting because just a couple of, or actually last month, I was at an existing company, or a user of ePlan at a company, but they weren't using ProPanel yet, and they really were not able to see the benefits from the engineering side of where ProPanel fit for them. And it wasn't until I was on the shop floor with the electricians and I saw exactly, this was 20 some years later, and I'm seeing the same work process, highlighting wires throughout a hard copy print. And so I was starting to ask some questions about, what if I were to be able to provide you an electronic copy of that package, and to where you could see all the information you needed about that wire, and where it was terminated at, and what the color, the size, all the information needed to route that wire. And there was some interest there. And so now we are in the process of transitioning them to ProPanel, and possibly using these functionalities this functionality to route the wires and utilize tools that allow the electricians to quickly be able to uh, work within that panel and route their panel. And some of the other issues that I come across are space requirements, for example. And this is, a pretty common thing from a UL perspective, and making sure that I've got proper spacing um, of my devices. I was on site with a company yesterday, actually, in Kentucky, where they were telling us that the electricians, or the panel shop, it was an external panel shop, they were the ones that were taking care of space requirements. They would place the parts where they thought they needed them to go, but they were relying on the panel shop to be able to define the placement. But in that particular case, they couldn't necessarily guarantee also that if they made some adjustments, does that does it continue to fit in that panel? So there were some challenges there. But for example, if I'm in Pro Panel, and here in the Pro Panel environment, let's just say I just show my mounting plate on the inside, and I can quickly navigate with the cube here around the panel. I can see this in an ISO view, so this makes it very easy for me to work and maneuver around. I don't have to have any experience in a 3D mechanical package. I just have some very simple tools available to me to be able to navigate around. And so from here, I just have some menus available, like for example, viewing menu. And the viewing menu really allows me to see some things, for example, from a mounting clearance perspective. And what's interesting from the data portal, like we were talking about earlier, is that the manufacturers are providing this information for us. So the red outline is letting me know that there is a defined clearance either on the top, bottom, left, right, front, back of that particular part. And again, the manufacturers provide this to us, and we can quickly see and just kind of rotate around to see where how the clearances are set, and we'll ensure through collision check that the parts are placed appropriately spaced as well. So this makes things very easy for the users to define their mounting clearances before it goes to build, so that the electricians don't have to come back to engineering and say, we have a problem, and now we're sitting and waiting for the change to be taken care of in that particular case. Other things that I come across too are parts that are missing. The uh, the the part is either missing off of the bill of material. The part is not on the panel, but maybe it is in the bill of material, or vice versa. Maybe they show it on the panel, but not in the bill of material. So there are some checks inside of Eplan that allow me to ensure that I've taken care of that, and that is through, for example, the navigation window for placing these components. And so here I can set a filter for any unplaced parts, so that way I know that I have some all of my parts have been placed throughout my project, so I don't have to worry about any of those types of errors. But I know I'm getting a little bit off the topic of routing, but this is just another one of those examples that you get right from the functionality of Pro Panel Professional. Out of the box, you have those checks readily available. But now let's look at the routing side of this, and what are some of the things that we can do from a routing standpoint. I have schematics. I have my project has some power pages. I have some IO pages in here. There's some reports. So my bill of material is generated as well. So from the wiring standpoint, I now want to take that wire data and generate where my wires are going to be routed around this panel. I've also identified where some of the wire duct is laid out. So if I need to, replace wire duct, I want to make the wire duct a little bit bigger or smaller, I can change and I can swap parts out very easily there. If I want to also change, I can maybe change the length of a wire duct. I can do that very quickly that way as well. From the wiring standpoint, now that I have an idea of where all of my wire ducts are going to be laid out, I also have some free routing. So maybe you just are going to route wires through clips, and these free routing paths allow me to route wires freely throughout the panel. We've come across that a number of times where a company has laid out or provided us with information about their panel, and there's no wire ducts. That kind of threw me off at first, because I was never really used to seeing that early on when I first started using ProPanel. I always worked with panels that had that was just nothing but wire duct, and so that was interesting to me when I first started using the software, of how these routing paths can be used. And here from the insert menu, we have different routing aids. So your routing paths or your virtual routing path, you have your curves that you can define here. You can also visualize your routing path, your network, your seeing the routing path view, or the tracking of the routing path. So when I click on a routing path, it'll allow me to see that I have kind of like a direct connection of all of my different, all of my routing paths throughout the project as well. So there's some really cool tools that allow me to see that. But now it's like one of those things where I keep talking about it. I'm like building up the suspense of actually having all these wires
Yeah, I feel like
automatically
this is the
routed,
long
like
tease.
this
This is
this
the long
magic,
tease,
right?
man.
Yeah. So, well, let's just go ahead and we'll just get into it here. So just go right to my route. And when I route this, Eplan looks at all of the devices that are placed, kind of looks at, okay, is there a wire in the project somewhere? And then let's just go ahead and, or the system will go ahead then and route those wires. So here you can see, as I'm zooming into the connection, the wires are actually, connected directly into that position. Again, the connection point pattern is driving that, that type of connection. So here you can see, where that wire is being terminated in. And you can also, if you wanted to, you could go into, let's say, for example, we go into the connection point pattern here, and the connection point pattern indicates to me what all of the connection point designations are, how they're being defined. They can be defined with a number, they can be defined with a letter, they can be defined with a combination of characters. The key is that we are defining that connection point pattern the same way that we would have that defined in the part. So there is a synchronization between these from the part. So when we do place these in the schematic, we have a direct a relationship between what is in the schematic and what is in the panel. We're also able to see the X, Y, and Z position of that connection point. That's what you're seeing here as these wires are terminated into those positions. And then the direction in which that wire is leaving that connection. So is that wire going up, or is that wire going down at the bottom, for example? So you can define that information too. You can also define some vectoring if you want to have some different, sort of specific angling directions and things like that. You can also add additional length if you want to have maybe you want to standardize on a specific additional length for all of your connections. You can do that here at the connection point pattern. You can also do that globally. So if you want to, let's say you want to have, I don't know, a 5% added extra length to all of your wires, or 10, whatever that percentage is, or maybe it's a fixed, half an inch you want as a fixed global length for all of your connections. You can do that as well. We also define the connection category. And depending on the connection category, what's important to note is that maybe the torquening, or the tightening torque, is going to be I'd say a property that needs to be provided for that panel as well. And I see this a lot, Josh, where there's companies that are manually typing in the information. First, they have to go out and they have to search on on that manufacturer's website for this information, and then they have to manually type it into a sticker or onto a tag that is ultimately going to be placed inside the panel. And this is a UL, a UL requirement as well. So why not already have this information available, and let's just generate this as a output to have that data automatically populate for us. So that's a very important piece to speed up the process of from the wiring standpoint as well. And here you can also see minimum and maximum torque setting, or sorry, a wire gauge. And we have that in both, in both metric as well as US gauge standards. So let's say if a wire is outside of that minimum and maximum range, we want to generate an error message so that way we can take care of it before it gets to manufacturing. So we see this a lot where manufacturing is having to, have these issues, and then it just takes too long. It takes a long time to try to understand what is the issue and then fix it. Probably some new, some calculations need to be figured out to ensure that we have the right wire size, or maybe it was just a mistype or something. So this information is the manufacturers are providing this information from the data portal. And even if you create your own part that's not in the data portal, that's okay. You can create this information very quickly and define those properties very quickly as well. You can copy from one to create another. So we make the process very easy for you to create your own as well. Now let's take a look at some of the features of the wire routing. One of the features of the wire routing is the wire duct fill. So here I have all of these different size ducts, but I want to ensure that my wire duct is within the tolerance that I've indicated. So you can have essentially we have a color code, a green, yellow, red. Green just means that I'm within my percentage of fill that I've defined. A yellow means that I'm between that range. Let's say, for example, I want to be between 65 and 75% full, and so anything over 75%, I want that to register an error, which is going to be a red indicator. So here in the view menu, I can view the fill capacity. And when I view the fill capacity, well, I have a lot of wires that are being displayed. So what I'll do is I'm just going to go to my navigator for my connections. I'm going to tell the system to hide my routed connections. It's not deleting them. They're still there. I can see all of my connections, but I'm just hiding them for the time being so that I can see. I'll just reduce that for a second. So now you can see some yellow, you can see some red. So now I can really tell that there is an issue with the amount of wires that are in some of these areas in the panel. There's also some green where you see there's some green indicators as well. So let's say, for example, I want to change the wire or the duct. So I'm just going to take these two wire ducts here, and I'm just going to select them and just change the part number. So I just go into my part selection. Here it's a 1x3 Panduit part, and I just want to change. I want to up it to a 2x3. So I just select the 2x3, and now once I've selected that 2x3, just do a quick update of that of those parts, and then what you'll see here is the size of these change. So now that the wire duct has changed, and maybe what I might end up having to do is if needed, I can also just change the size, or grab these other wire ducts over here and snap them into position as well if I need to. But now that I've made that adjustment, I just tell the system here that I want to update my duct fill. And then once I update my duct fill, I'll be able to see, okay, did that change my, my sizing? So I could see that, this one went from a yellow to green, but this is still red. So maybe I need to go a little bit higher up with my wire duct because there's too much, or the wire size is a little bit too much. So let me just bring those wires back here real quick. And so the other thing that I have access to from a wiring standpoint is going to be the is going to be separating voltage. So here, for example, I have a wire duct that is indicated, let's say, for example, in this example, it's defined as high voltage and this one is low voltage. So you can separate your 24 volt from your higher voltage devices. So here it's just a simple filter that can be defined. And here I'm just filtering on a wire color. So based on that wire color, I can easily define that difference of voltage. If I wanted to just define the property as the voltage, I can do that as well. So you just have these properties available that you can set. Josh, can you think of in our conversations that we had, can you think of any other issues that you think could be a problem, or maybe another method that we might use in order to check the project that it's error free?
I think that the what I remember most about us doing is something that you covered was that error check, because a lot of times that you might have a wire that's placed in there that isn't the right wire size, and that seems to be probably the most common error, is that it's not the right wire size. And so whenever you do the error check, it'll show you that what size the wire is, and it'll also take you to a page that will explain what that error is inside of the ePlan website.
Yeah, so remember I was mentioning about the connection point pattern and having that minimum and maximum,
Hmm.
gauge size. And what's really nice about that feature, and our, having the manufacturers providing that data now, is that I can generate an error report. So from the tools menu, I have this message management system that allows me to create a scheme of different types of checks that are important to me. There's a lot of messages. There's a lot of messages that we provide, but our users don't have to use all of them. What makes sense to me, and what are my biggest issues? And like I mentioned before, I meet with I get a chance to meet with those the electricians, and I hear a lot about these kind of things. And I think from a message management, from a checking of the project before it actually goes out, is a useful tool. And so I don't feel like it gets used as much as it could be used here in the US. And I'd really like to see more of our users take advantage of this functionality. And here I have some messages that already came up. And so here I can see interruption point without counterpiece. Well, this is important in the schematics. It's not necessarily something that I'm too worried about in the panel at the moment. But as I scroll down, I can see some more of these parts, or sorry, issues that are coming up. And here, this particular message is indicating a connection point, or the uh, oh, why is that not available? Okay, so the connection point, the cross section is larger than specified in the connection point pattern. And so Um, if I'm not quite sure exactly what this message means, I can hit the F1 key and pull up the help menu, and be able to tell what is the issue really? What's the cause of the issue? How do I fix that issue? Well, when I look at this issue here, I can also simply just double click on the device tag, for example, and it'll take me exactly to that device. So it says the connection cross section is larger than specified in the connection point pattern. And from what I mentioned earlier, the connection point pattern is in the properties of that part. So then I can go ahead and I can see the cross section again is larger. So here's that minimum and maximum gauge size. So I'm not going to fix it here because this is what I want it to be. I want it to generate this error message here. So maybe it's something in the schematics. So here I just jump because I have a direct cross-reference to the component in the schematic. And now I can go ahead and see a little bit more detail here. There is my device. I could see some wire tags over here for the wires that are connecting on this side. And I also see a wire tag here. Well, the wire tag here indicates 6 gauge, while this one is indicating 16 gauge. So it looks like that's where my issue is, that this is indicating a 16 gauge or a 6 gauge wire. And then I just kind of take a look and looks like, okay, there's some more 6 gauge. So it looks like maybe there was a copy paste situation here. And this is where we talk about macro technology with our users. And we try to talk about that as our method to reduce copy pasting. And especially in this case here, maybe I did a copy paste of this and have this error that just kind of cascaded throughout the project. So here, if I just I'll highlight all of those wire tags, and I'm just going to go ahead and access the properties of just the wire tag. Here is where I can go ahead and define the cross section. I mentioned to you earlier about the part and how important the part number is in being able to drive these properties and have these properties automatically displayed instead of having to go in again. Let's say I go in and I manually change this. Well, that's might have been what got me into trouble in the first place. Well, let's just go to the part, and I'm going to add the part number. So here I just say I want a 16 gauge blue, and that 16 gauge blue, the blue and the 16 automatically are copied to my wire tag. And in addition to that, the cross section or the external diameter is also associated to that part. So this is what's helping me to calculate the fill capacity within that wire duct. Now, by just selecting this part number, 3 properties are automatically available to this particular wire. So now all of those wires have now been updated just by adding that part property. And then when I go back over to, let's say I go back over to my panel, and from my panel, remember we had those wires that were being shown, those wires being shown earlier. So I'm just going to go ahead and indicate here that I want to show all of my wires back on the panel. And from the messaging here, we just tell the system to go ahead and recheck our project, and it will let me know if I still have any of these issues from the wires. I do have, it looks like I do have a couple of them here, but now we can see that a lot of those connections from this contactor, these contactors are now resolved. I just have to take a look at what this VFD issue is next. But this is allowing me to check my project, fix my issues very quickly, and move on and ensure that I'm going to send a project to the electricians that is error free, and it will allow me to not have to waste any time for those panel builders.
By the way, Paul, we have a lot of really great questions that have come through, and don't worry
Yeah.
that I do see all of the questions as they come through. Paul and I can see all of these questions as they come through, so we're going to answer some of these. And if we don't get to your question, don't worry about that because we will be following up. We'll reach out to you. I have a log of all the questions, so we will be reaching out to you and giving you the answers to these questions or following up with you. So don't feel the least bit slighted that we haven't covered your question. We will. We'll talk to you one-on-one. if we don't answer it in this in the questions right now. Do you want to go ahead and do the some questions? You want to get some of
Yeah,
those?
I think so. I think
Okay.
at this point, I think it would be good to start looking, start talking about some of those, or go through some of those questions. Yeah.
I actually I thought this was a good question to start off with, and it was can you check for bend radius of larger wires?
So bend radius is also a property in the part database. So there can be some checking of the bend radius information as well. Yes.
Okay, that was that was the easy one. Does the software accommodate for lug connection type per wire,
Lug connection type.
like ring, fork, ferrule?
Yes. Yes. Sorry. So that is defined here in the properties for the wire. There are, we call them the wire termination, processing, source, and target. So you can define this right here with the individual wire. This is also a global setting too. So if you have, let's say, a large amount of your wires are going to be defined as, with a specific type of ferrule, then you can define that as the global setting, and then any of them that change or need to be defined differently, you can just go into those as needed to define those. Now, also keep in mind, this is also the property that we would define for wire processing. So we have the WT, the wire terminal machine, where the data of the wires can be exported directly out of the project and sent into a wire processing machine. And those types of machines will also have a specific, ferrule capability there as well. So that name that you're going to give, or the how you're going to define the end termination, source, and target, will be based on the name that has been defined in that wire processing machine.
Next question is one that I actually know the answer to this, but I'm going to let you generate this on your own. Does the software create hole patterns for mounting of components, DIN rail, wire duct, etc.? So this is something I'll let you show off.
Yeah, so this is happening actually automatically as we're placing these components. And so I appreciate the question. It wasn't necessarily on our agenda for today, but it's a great question because it's just another opportunity to view drilling information right here on this particular uh, on this panel. So here you have your devices like a transformer that is mounted directly to the backplate, or you have your wire duct and also your DIN rail. And when you rotate this around, you can also see the those holes from the backside as well. But this information, these wire, all of the hole patterns, these hole patterns are associated to are defined in the part. So again, we're kind of keep going back to the data, all of this data that's stored in the part, and there is the drill pattern. Here's your connection point pattern that we're talking about earlier, and here's the drill pattern that is associated to that part. So we know that there is, whether it is threaded holes. Threaded holes are usually in orange. Drill holes are in red, and the cutouts, you'll be able to see. You can see the cutouts as well, and so all of that information can be stored directly in with that part.
Excellent.
The other
Uh,
thing, Josh, I'll just mention is that data can also be can be exported out. So similar to what I was just talking about with the wire processing, sending the wire data to the WT, you can also export your machining data to maybe an automated drilling and cutting machine like the Rittal Perforex machine, or here you can also generate a PDF file, just maybe you don't have access to a machine like that, and you're having to measure everything out. You could use a drill template as a PDF and plot it out to size and lay it out and use that as your template for drilling. But that all of those the drill holes can also be exported out.
Can you automate routing between parallel runs of wire channel? Most of the time, I have to manually draw a routing path between the two runs.
Say that one again.
Can you automate routing between parallel runs of wire channel? I don't know. Maybe you need a little bit more information about
So,
that.
well, let's just say, for example, if it was, um, I think what is being said is that maybe if there wasn't something here, how could I automate there being a routing this routing path between these two channels? Whether so in this case, if I were to update the path, there is no connection between these two. So I would have to have either another wire duct in between, or I would have to have that have that routing path defined between this way. Or the easiest is just to throw in a throw in the channel here, and once I throw in that channel, that automatically updates and adds those routing paths.
Is the unplaced parts a preloaded filter in the 3D mounting layout navigator, or does that need to be created by the user?
Good question. So it is already there. I actually modified it a bit for what I wanted to use it for, but it is already there, and or at least it should be. And it's if it's not, then you can, if for whatever reason you don't have it, I can send it to you if you want me to send it. But it is um, the, you just define what you want. Like for example, I don't want to see cables. There's some different types of devices that I might not want to see, or parts that I might not want to see. So I just set my filter up to only show me what I want. You might have multiple parts or multiple panels in your project, so you could actually just set up a filter just to filter out for a specific mounting location, because you structure your project by location, and you can set filters up by location. You can set filters up for specific parts. In this particular case, I don't have really any structure in my project. I only have one panel, and I really wanted to focus on the parts that are going to be placed on the panel. So I filtered out things like cables and things like that. So
I'm looking at other questions. Give me a chance. You don't give me enough chance to read. You're answering these way too fast. Can you specifically allow potentials in specific wire ducts? For example, we only want 24 volt or 24 VDC wiring in a duct, but maybe 480 VAC could pass through at 90 degrees. That's like way beyond my comprehension. I don't even know how I read that, but I'll read it to you one more time. If you
thank
have
you.
do you have this one, or you want me to read
No,
it
go ahead
again?
and say one more. I think I had it,
Okay.
but then
Can
there's a
you
twist there at the end.
Can you specifically, or can you specify allowed potentials in specific wire ducts? For example, we only want 24 VDC wiring in a duct, but maybe 480 VAC could pass through at 90 degrees.
we're not going to necessarily specify this the 90-degree part, but if it's going to allow for it's actually it's either allowed or not allowed essentially. But here uh, from the filtering standpoint, it's a here from the connection filter. So here's where you're defining what property. I do it off of, I'm doing it right now in this project off of the color and gauge, but you have these other properties available, and potential value is another property that you could use. And so you could indicate if you're using potential in your project to illustrate the difference between 24 volt and 480 volt, you can use this value, and then you would have those selections available to you to select from. And it would be similar to what we did here, where it's just a checkbox. And so the checkbox is, whether you have 480, 24, 120, so you can check which of which voltages you want to allow to go through that channel. And that's a setting that you can set for each individual channel.
Gotcha. Paul, we're coming up on time. We do have
Yeah.
other questions we haven't answered yet, but again, we will respond to these. I know that we had questions about saddle jumpers and other things that at the end of this, you'll get a survey and it'll ask you what you would like to see on an upcoming episode of the webcast. So that's actually the perfect place to leave that. If you want more information or you want us to cover a certain topic, leave it there. Let us know what you thought about this session. We love the feedback. We love to hear it, and want to do these webcasts that are beneficial to you. In fact, our next webcast is on March 26th with David Ridgel. He's going to be covering transitioning from adoption to automation. Paul, you and I have talked a little bit about this. It's
Yep.
going to focus on your journey from initial adoption to seamless automation. We're going to guide you through the stages from onboarding to advanced automation, showing how expert consulting and training kind of lay the foundation of that success. So it's a really, really good webcast for you to check out. In fact, give me a second. I'm going to copy this and I will leave the registration right now in the chat. So you can register for that one that's coming up. It'll be the same time as this one, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So don't miss that. You actually get more information on the email that's going to be sent to you tomorrow with the recording. That will give you that registration link as well. So thanks for joining us today, Paul. You did a great job. This is a topic
Thank
that
you,
you and I
Josh.
have talked about a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm proficient enough to where I could get in there and do it myself.
Next
Probably
one you
not.
can do. Yeah.
Yeah, next time. So thanks again, everybody, for joining. Paul, awesome job. And we appreciate you watching this webcast with us. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh. Have a great week, everyone.